Are you ready, black people? Are you really ready? Are you ready to listen to all the beautiful black voices, the beautiful black feeling, the beautiful black waves moving in beautiful air? Are you ready, black people? Are you ready?
Nobody ever heard of the Harlem Culture Festival. Nobody would believe it happened.
6 weekends of major artists.
The Panthers were the security and kids were sitting up on the trees.
I was nervous. I didn't expect a crowd like that. Something very important was happening. It wasn't just about the music.
1969 was a change of era in the black community.
The styles were changing.
Music was changing.
And revolution was coming together.
We are a new people. We are a beautiful people.
That concert took my life from black and white into color.
We wanted progress. We are black people, and we should be proud of this.
We were coming together to say this was our world and how beautiful it was.
We're gonna try to sing a song together. Don't wait for your neighbor, because your neighbor might be waiting for you.
Wanna take you higher?
Are you ready?
Wanna take you higher?
We believed in what we felt in here. So when we went up, let's go. Let's go do it.
Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today we have a real treat for you as we are talking to producer Questlove about his amazing new movie, Summer of Soul, which talks about a concert that took place before Woodstock. We're going to let the roundtable tell you more. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to our facilitator, Katia Woods in Philadelphia, Thomasina in Philadelphia, KB in Houston, Ray Cornelius in Atlanta, Mercedes back from Croatia in Atlanta, Brandon Collins in Queens, New York, and Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta. I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I'll see you on the other side.
KB here with Through the Lens of Lady KB. So first off, just thank you for such an incredible documentary. The Harlem Cultural Festival was so extraordinary, and this documentary really just opened my eyes to such a revolutionary event that I had no idea of or no knowledge of before. So you got so many people to speak to their personal experience at this festival. I mean, everyone from Marilyn McCoo to Billy Davis Jr., Gladys Knight. So could you talk a little bit about the journey of connecting with these artists and getting them to join this project? And also, how did you choose which footage of their dynamic interviews to use?
Maybe the partial reason why I was chosen to direct this film was kind of my known reputation for inside baseball, if you will, and having relationships with a lot of these artists, because a majority of the time it was like, okay, well, I'll call Stevie and see what happens and like that sort of thing. So, just personal relationships the last 30 years and getting them to do that. As far as the commentation on the people that attended the festival, I thought the best place to start would have been my social media, but sort of knowing that, your average Twitter, Instagram person isn't 75 to 85 years old. I kind of framed it to their grandkids and nieces, like, hey, is there that crazy uncle that won't shut up about that one time he saw Nina Simone in Harlem at this concert that he thinks happens but didn't happen, that sort of thing? Like, if there's any of that person in your life, like if you know someone that bragged about Stevie and Sly and that sort of thing, hit me up. And yes, like instantly right out the back, like, yo, that's all my uncle talks about, or my dad was there, that sort of thing. And as far as the footage, I kind of went from kind of being a music snob arrogance of this didn't happen. Like, okay, what y'all really here for? To seeing like, okay, there's 40 hours of footage to choose from. So I'll say that for 5 months alone, I had to literally turn every monitor in my house and in my office, in my studio, running this footage 24 hours straight for 5 months straight. So even if I was asleep, I never turned any television off. So imagine like being in an environment in which every television in the house is playing this. After 4 months of this, it was like, but I just kept notes. I kept notes for those 5 months of what gave me goosebumps, what seemed important. And once we had about 30 to 40 things listed of things that we thought were interesting, that's when we knew we had a foundation to start to tell the story of the Harlem Cultural Festival.
Well, job well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Brandon Collison, and Media and Popcorn Podcast. First of all, where did Tony Lawrence get all those outfits? I'm just there's just so many outfits.
Man, you know what? The biggest mystery to us that, you know, I'm praying for, if there's a Hail Mary pass that I want to catch, we could not, like, Tony Lawrence has done something that's impossible. He's literally disappeared off the radar. We don't know if he's alive or dead or any of those things. Like we had a paper trail and kind of lost him in 1985. And even those that knew him, whatever, it's just like one day he just up and split. Like he just literally disappeared. So, of course, the storybook ending, of course, is he shows up. I'm like, I'm here all the time, you know, in one of his fringe outfits and sombreros. But yeah, I will say that his fashion sense and his confidence, like that taught me a lot, because, you know, if anything, I feel like there's a lot of all the things I've done, I've never had like self-doubt or any trepidation of, can I do this record, or can I do this book, or can I do the Tonight Show? This is the first time in my entire career in which I like had pause and sort of like, maybe like the ghost of imposter syndrome was like starting to set in, or that sort of thing. But, you know, I just kept watching Tony Lawrence, and the fact that he was able to really have complete control of over 300,000 people that year, with such confidence. And that's what I learned from him. Like, he had the audacity to fantasize about a festival, an unprecedented festival that nothing of this ever happened before for like Black pop music. And just the audacity of him having the confidence and the wherewithal to put it together and to be the host of it. That taught me a lot, and a lot about myself in 2020.
Thank you, and great job. This is a beautiful piece of work. It's the first movie of the year to make me cry. So,
thank you, man. Thanks.
How you doing, Questlove? My name is Thomasina. My outlet is Music Movies Thoughts out of Philly.
Yes, Philly. What part of Philly are you from?
North Philly. I grew up.
NORF, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
North.
I'm a West Philadelphia. All right.
Yes. The documentary is amazing. I mean, I learned so much from it. I also enjoy listening to Questlove Supreme, the podcast, and you are an avid music historian. You have a wide range of knowledge there. What facts surprised you as you were researching and directing this project?
Okay, this is what you get. The most heartbreaking part of this movie is the stuff that almost happened that didn't happen. So in looking through Hal Tolson's notes, which were also in his basement, along with the footage that we were able to get, we found out that Aretha Franklin was an 11th hour cancellation, like maybe 2 nights before. So if this concert's on a Sunday, so Friday they get an Aretha Franklin cancellation. So they have to double down on the staple singers. So Initially, I think the summit meeting of Aretha Franklin and Mahalia Jackson, that was supposed to be the Precious Lord moment. And kind of Mavis Staples just stepped there up to bat and brought it home. That's one thing. Another thing is I found out, well, okay, so Sly and the Family Stone was never scheduled to appear on the festival. It just so happens that they were in town because they're also doing that other festival. And this was sort of like a dress rehearsal for them, which also probably explains why their check was so low. Who knew that you could hire Sly and the Family Stone for $2,500 back in 1969? So it's like, oh, they could play my barbecue or something. Also, we found out that Jimi Hendrix requested to play this festival. I don't know why he was turned away. I don't know if it was scheduling or maybe it's the fact like Jimi Hendrix, but that's kind of a sad thing because Jimmy was actually undergoing his, I won't say his transformation because that would be discrediting like that he wasn't Black, but he kind of was in a period in late 1969 where he was tired of being kind of like the puppet piece for like this, I guess you would describe it as a primitive, exotic kind of novelty thing where like, you know, like all the UK white acts come to see this guy destroy his guitar and lick his guitar and like, he's look at him go. Like, it was almost like he felt like he was a novelty act and he wanted to get serious about his craft and actually return to his Black roots. So he wanted to do a blues set he fired the Experience and, you know, had the Band of Gypsies, which, you know, two brothers, Buddy Miles and Billy Cox, and blues legend, damn. What's his name? King, not Albert King, not B.B. King. There's a third King. I knew I was going to have a brain fart on this. Albert King is who it was. And then the last one, the last heartbreak was that the television production people who were shooting all 6 weeks, they gave a memo to Hal Tolshin to tell him that they won't be available to get out of a previous commitment for the 6 week. So if they want to do some shuffling to the act so that we get the big names on camera, they should do so and adjust accordingly. So they did that, thus moving the Miss Harlem pageant to the 6 week, which they didn't plan on broadcasting anyway, had this made it to TV or movie. And then they also said, well, throw all the local acts on too. So, you know, like the unknown people. And unfortunately, we missed an opportunity to watch a 17-year-old Luther Vandross have his very first performance. So that, probably the last thing I was shocked at that I wasn't aware of, even though I think it sort of got out there when Jesse Jackson's describing the last 10 minutes of Martin Luther King's life. You know, I asked about Benjamin Branch and his importance. And of course, you know, Jesse's saying that Ben Branch was the last human being that Jackson spoke to before he got assassinated. And he's describing the last 10 minutes of the Lorraine Motel. And I know we have this association with the mountaintop speech the night before, where it's sort of like an omen. And, you know, you're kind of left with this feeling like, oh, he knew he was going to die and sort of that thing. And the way that Jesse described it, man, like they were having the time of their lives 10 minutes before. Like they were having a pillow fight. I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that they were having and ranking on each other's moms. Like, all because Jesse didn't want to wear a tie to dinner and wear casual clothes. So he was like, yeah, we were just, you know, me, Andrew Young, Abernathy, and King were just like having a pillow fight, ranking on each other's clothes and whatnot. And then when we heard the car, like, it's time to go to dinner, you know, unfortunately, history changed 10 minutes later. But I kind of was just the way that he described, like, yeah, it wasn't a sad occasion. Like we were like laughing and playing with each other. Like that paints a little bit different than what I felt was like the last month of King's life, where it's like everyone's against him and now he's about to protest the Vietnam War and, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a lot that I learned that unfortunately had to wind up on the cutting room floor. Like my first draft was like 3 hours and 25 minutes. So 90 minutes of what I had to cut down just to make it more succinct and to the point.
Thank you so much. I learned even more. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Questlove. Mercedes here. She critiques out of Atlanta. Congratulations on your directorial debut, first of all.
Thank you.
I heard you say in another interview that you kind of structured the editing to have like a rhythmic pace to it or a rhythmic undertone. And I'm just wondering if there was anything else like unconventional that you tried, just putting your fingerprint on this film that's woven.
You know, it's weird. I didn't think, I thought this was normal. Like, I'll say that maybe towards the very end that I realized how risky it was for us to present it this way. Because, you know, in the very, very beginning, I was inspired by, you know, when I took the assignment, Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace had just come out, Sidney Pollack's documentary of Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace. And the fact that he did it without context whatsoever, I thought that was a really odd choice. But mid-film, I actually felt like I was in the room with him. Like, I feel like I was sitting next to the Rolling Stones in the Deacon pew watching it. And even though I knew there were stories behind it, like, you know, Bernard Purdy talking about James Cleveland losing his mind because one of the Rolling Stones parked in this parking spot or some, you know, there's like a lot of drama that was happening there at the time that I would have liked to know, you know, and the kind of the podcast nerd in me wanted to know the intricacies of it all. But it really wasn't until there was a moment in watching Stevie Wonder's performance where Stevie Wonder comes from that Motown school of complete entertainment. So there was one thing I couldn't explain to people, even if they caught it a little bit. But Stevie Wonder and his musical director, Gene Key, they kind of have this like little vaudeville kind of Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges skit thing going on where, like, you know, Gene was the bad guy and Stevie was the good guy, and they're always ranking and joking on each other on stage. And so there's a moment in which Gene talks about the moon landing, because the moon landing happened at the exact time that Stevie gets on stage, and they kind of joke about it. And then I heard the audience booing. And then it was sort of like, whoa, wait, what's that? And, you know, because of my time in this world, later in 77, 78, 79, like I was taught in class that was to be celebrated. And that was, you know, they already did the revisionist thing in my elementary school about the moon landing. So I didn't realize that there was that much disdain for the moon landing. And once we did research, and it took us about like 4 to 5 months to find that footage of them at the Harlem Cultural Festival, interviewing people about it, then that's when we knew, like, okay, we really got to open the doors and get other things that we might have questions about, like allow commentary in. And I worried for a second, like, is this going to interrupt the musical flow, or is there a way to make that work? And I'll say again, like the work of Josh Pearson, our editor, and our producer, Joseph Patel, they were really instrumental in making sure that the information and the entertainment weren't in each other's way. So it was, I thought this was a normal thing because, you know, I kind of want to go balls to the wall with the Sly and the Family Stone documentary. So, you know, I thought this was just like an appetizer to, you know, what's coming up next.
Thank you. I can't wait to see what comes up next.
Thank you.
Ray Cornelius here with Upfront Inside the Entertainment Industry. Amazing film. They're calling it one of the best films of the year so far. Wanted to talk about how you were able to weave the history into the event itself. I mean, you talked about some of the social things that were happening in New York City at that time, the mayor, and just to watch this, even though it was over 50 something years ago, it's still very relevant, especially the end with Nina Simone singing, Young, Gifted, and Black. So was that always the idea, to be able to weave what was happening in the country and around the country, as well as what was taking place with the festival?
Okay, so there's maybe 6 or 7 psychographs that I wanted to satisfy. It's like I knew that my parents' age and the grandparents' age, I knew that they would instantly gravitate towards this film because they lived it. And then my generation was just like Gen X. Because of what our parents were and educating us, some of us would know this information. And if not, it's like, okay, you don't know Sly, but you know the Humpty Dance. You might not know the staple singers, but you might know Let's Talk About Sex by Salt and Pepper. So like, even with hip hop samples, you're kind of connected with those acts. And for the longest, I was just trying to rack my brain like, man, what do I do for someone born after 1994 that just doesn't see this as more porn pain from, older generation? And yes, we know the civil rights movement, yada, yada, yada. And, the strangest thing happened, which is, of course, we all realized that we were all living in the time period that we were reflecting on. So it was for me, it was absolutely no, it was so gobsmackingly obvious that Gen Z and generation, Gen Z and millennials will see kind of this as like, oh, this is happening to us right now as we speak, as 18, 19, 20, 20. So, and, since the movie's been out, that's exactly what's happened. Yes, older people are like, oh my God, Mahalia Jackson. Younger people are like, oh man, just to see the protests and the civil unrest and all that stuff, like they got it. Not to mention, just the music nerd in me wanted to know other things not connected to the civil rights period. Like I wanted to know if Stevie Wonder had a writer. I wanted to know, like there's some things I had to leave out, like Mavis Staples talking about how they still use the Green Book well into like the 70s for their safety. Like she's like, even in the 80s, we knew what sundown towns were. And I was like, wait, you guys are still driving yourself to gigs in like way after Let's Do It Again? It's like, yeah, we would drive ourselves to a gig and da-da-da. I was like, oh, there wasn't tour buses and you didn't request like pretzels and a cheese spread and charcuterie or none of those. Like, I just wanted to know those basic things. Even with Sheila E. describing drumming styles, like, so there was so much information I wanted to pack from a creative level, from a social level, from a time level, from a generational level. Yeah, one day I'll reveal the sort of CSI map of how we map this all together to make it work.
Amazing film, and thank you for including the jazz pieces. This show airs on a jazz station, so thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Questlove, Katia Woods, Couple Social, out of the 215.
Yes.
My question is about Sly and the Family Stone. For me, they are the group that changed the trajectory of music. We wouldn't have a lot of the acts that we love. And like you, I am Generation X. Yeah. So for me, it's the music that I grew up with. And it also made me think about my first concert experience. What I wanted to ask you, did you try, I mean, I know Sly is hard to have a conversation with because of some of his health issues, but did you try to speak to his brother and his sister who were there for the journey, were such a vital part of the whole experience?
So here's the thing. We built a mighty Jenga piece pre-March of 2020. And so by like February of 2020, we had an entire map planned where, like the Chambers Brothers, we were going to fly out to them, maybe talk to Larry Graham or Freddie and and like all these things. And then when March 2020 happened, we had to start from scratch. And, you know, it felt like the apocalypse was happening between like March, April, and May. And it was like, well, does this film go back in the basement now? Like, do we wait a year until if we all survive and the new normal happens? Like, I really just thought like, oh, well, damn, that's that. And then, no, it was like we pushed on. So after March 2020, we had to kind of start all over again and deal with the comfort level of who was willing to be in front of us. And, you know, we had to get real inventive. Like in the case of Mavis Staples, we kind of had to build this this Mars rover thing where guys in the hallway, like wheeling a remote control thing device inside of her living room with a microphone to speak to her that way. Like that was how we were able to get Mavis Staples. You know, Charlene Hunter felt comfortable enough to come outside to interview us and that sort of thing. But yeah, we lost a lot out, you know, and I will say that in the original vision, we packed this with even more interviews for our wish list. And now that I see it, it would have taken away from the film. I just think my eagerness to include any and everybody, I just, you know, wanted to talk to everybody that was there and that sort of thing. But we felt we had a tight 2 hours when it was done. But yes, I agree with you about Sly and the Family Stone. Probably the most telling moment of that performance. My favorite camera is camera 4, which focuses on just the audience's faces alone. And the only way that I can describe it to someone in my generation that wouldn't understand is it would be as if modern day Migos maybe did like the Hot 97 festival, like did summer jams in 2001, where literally every adult that was in the audience for the first 15 minutes, for the first 3 songs, just looked at them like, wait, what's going on here? Because I realized that if you look at David Ruffin, his performance, it's in the middle of August and he's wearing a wool tuxedo. And it just hit me that Motown, and even with Marilyn McCoo, like code switching for Black people in the States, no matter where you are, like even for celebrities, code switching was important. And it was almost like professionalism had to even overtake and overshadow your own comfort. So yes, even though it's a wool tuxedo, I'm gonna go out in 100 degrees and perform the song in discomfort. So they had never seen a Black band before wear street clothes. The same way that people made a big deal of Nirvana wearing Kmart flannel, like, oh, like Sly and the Family Stone wearing their street clothes, like not wearing suits. Like that was such a statement that literally you could just see like every parent in there, like, wait, what's going on? Meanwhile, anyone under the age of 20 was losing their collective mind, like, ah. So just to see that generational divide, like I wish I could have kept the camera just on the audience's faces, like for those first 3 songs, and then to watch them slowly transform from this to this to, oh yeah, like suddenly now the adults are acting more crazier than the kids. So that was probably the most transformative reveal that I saw in real time. Like in 45 minutes, I watched a bunch of aliens come on stage and literally change people's minds in under an hour. That alone could have been a study.
I hope you do the Sly Stone doc by everybody, like, you know, while the core group is still here with us, because his story needs to be told.
Oh, no doubt. Yes. We're working on Sly's doc right now. And yes, Sly is you know, lucid and
yeah.
It's yes, we are collecting their stories.
Thank you so much. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey,
Um,
Ron.
yes, Rhonda from Rap Pages days. We were one of the first people to do a major feature on you guys. So,
Yeah.
but I'm curious. Take us to the moment when you and the team knew that you had it, and why did you know that this cut was the right cut?
The true answer is when we finally nailed Stevie Wonder. No, Stevie was always going to do it, but it's like, when is Stevie going to do it? Like, okay, this time, like, Stevie was our first ask and our last interview. So, you know, it was like we were about to do it, and then pandemic happened, and it's like, okay, let time go by. Okay, you feel comfortable now? You feel comfortable now? Are you guys comfortable now? And so it was like a lot of begging, a lot of DJ gigs, a lot of, you know, scratching backs and whatnot. But yeah, once Stevie came aboard, I felt like we really nipped it in the bud. And I'm not saying this like he's disposable. Like, even without him, I still feel like even without his interview, I feel like the movie was still potent. Literally, I'll just say that in my first cut, the Mavis, the 3 hour and 20-minute version, the Mavis and Mahalia moment was actually my original ending. And Nina Simone was in the middle. And we watched it, and it was like, it was cool. It was like, all right, it's not bad. And then maybe like days later, it was sort of like, do you think it's a strong enough ending? But it's like, it's Mavis and Mahalia. Like, what's stronger than that? But I don't know. It's just something felt very kumbaya, kind of Hollywood ending. Like, it was a nice soft landing, even though it was a beautiful moment. It's a nice soft landing. And I felt like we still couldn't answer the question of why Black erasure keeps happening. Like, why was this magic moment not preserved or treated with priority? And I felt like with the ending of Precious Lord at the end, it would have been too much of a nice, pleasant experience for me to then go like, and then history got thrown away and goodbye, you know? So, however, once we tried different combinations. And once we did it with Nina Simone ending the film, then suddenly this had a more stronger, kind of defiant, like, that was closer to the Panthers to me than it was Martin Luther King's era of the civil rights thing. And that was the important message, that 69 was the paradigm shift between the nicety era of the civil rights period. What's the nicety? Is still bloody. And the more urgent, we insist now period of the Black Panthers. And so once we made that switch, then it was sort of like, okay, now we have an ending.
And also, speaking of Stevie, I mean, you get to see his transformation from this kid artist to a man and an artist in full control of his gift.
You know what? I talked to Stevie for actually like maybe an hour, 15 minutes, which is weird because, you know, we only got to use like maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the sound bite. But yeah, the nerd in me really was curious about where his mind was, because I know that by 69, his contract had ran out. He gave Motown the ultimatum: you can take me or leave me, whatever, let me know. And I want $1 million to boot. Not to mention, you know, this is the period in which he's really getting into sort of like psychedelic music, like listening to Tonto and the Headless Explosion Band, listening to like Raymond Scott, who also was like key to building like all these weird trippy synthesizers at Motown. Like Barry Gordy went out to commission like 3 synthesizers from Raymond Scott. So a lot was happening in that moment. So yeah, a lot of our interview that I had to put on the cutting room floor was also just about, you know, about his relationship with like synesthesia, and how sound and colors works in his head, and what was he feeling like. like what were the sounds in his head that he was feeling that he had to get out there. And, you know, that's why I felt it was important to show Shooby-Doo Dah Day. Because, I mean, he had hits out the wazoo. Like, we could have did My Sharia Moore or, you know, If You Really Love Me, or he also did, Uptight. Like, he had, his whole set was greatest hits. But I felt like Shooby-Doo Dah Day was the one song in a set that actually pointed to the future of Stevie Wonder and where he was headed creatively. So, you know, sometimes it was the matter of, do we choose the big hit or do we choose the creative moment that really knocks you out in his performance? So yeah, with Nina and with Stevie, that was hard to do, because also with Nina, you know, her performance of Four Women was like devastating, but that would have drove us back to the 3-hour territory. So.
Hey, Questlove, Brandon Collins again from Media and Popcorn. I'm curious about what surprised you the most when seeing all this never before released footage, listening to all these performances and the stories of the people that were there for the festival in person.
Besides the fact that, well, you know, again, but benign racism or racism really isn't shocking to me anymore. But just the whole time I was just like, wow, like, because there was a period where I like watched Woodstock twice just to make sure I didn't repeat anything or unknowingly go into kind of territory that had already been discussed before. And, you know, I was just like, in seeing the story of Woodstock, I was like, wow, if even 20% of what happened at Woodstock, 10% of what happened at Woodstock happened at the Harlem Cultural Festival, you would have heard of the Harlem Cultural Festival. Like, Harlem Cultural Festival would have probably been painted in the same way that Altamont was painted as the anti-Woodstock, like where, you know, the brother was killed by the Hells Angels, and nothing happened. So, I mean, no, that's not shocking to me. It was just shocking, like, how easy revisionist history winds up being, because, you know, I learned that the Woodstock event itself wasn't the thing that made Woodstock a household name. It was the Woodstock movie. The Woodstock movie is then what suddenly turned this into the most important event of all time in the world. We don't care what you say. And all I kept asking myself was just like, you know, what like, I luckily landed into a place where I found music, because I chose two people who were in music to be my guides. But, you know, what about the other millions of people that could have watched this film and had their lives transformed? And, you know, not to discredit my all-time favorite television show, like Soul Train actually winds up being the Black joy epicenter that will fill that gap. You know, the first vision of Black joy, Afrocentricity, all those things. Soul Train represents that. But this film could have been that. So in making this, I know that it's 50 years out the late. I know it's 50 years out the gate, but I still feel like this film has legs and life to inspire and still teach lessons that we're still learning right now.
Questlove, it's Thomasina again. One final question, because you added so much and gave us more insight into the footage. Are there any plans to release any additional footage, maybe on Blu-ray or DVD or anything, any of the series?
You know, I have as a cinephile and film nerd, like I wouldn't be lying to you if I didn't say that if Criterion Collection reached out to me and said, hey, let's make a deal, I would instantly run to them. Yes, we have more than enough. We have more than enough of footage for extras and more songs and all those things. So I'm certain that we're going to have a conversation on what to do with the remaining 40 hours that we have. So it's really important because there's one element that I had to completely take out that I not regret. The comedy element was so important. And, without, there's no way that I could sort of dip in and dip out of what Pick Meet Markham meant, of what Moms Mabley meant, of what Willie Tyler and Lester meant, like all these great comedians that were killing at the festival. But, it almost takes 20 to 25 minutes to explain the history of Black comedy, from minstrelsy to ventriloquism to being a pioneering woman in this game, even with what's his name that does all the imitations? There's a fourth comedian there that he's sort of like the Black Rich Little. I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm sorry, you guys. But even to explain like 20 minutes, I had to take that out the film. So hopefully I can reinstate that portion back to explain people about even how the comedy element was important for Black entertainment back then.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, so Quest, is there like an official playlist?
That's, we're so backwards on our priority. It was almost like, wait, do you think we should do a soundtrack? We forgot the soundtrack. Yes, we are currently shopping the soundtrack because the sound is immaculate, and there's a lot to choose from. It's just a lot of paperwork that has to be done because all these artists are from various labels and various publishing companies. But yes, I'm certain that we will have this out as soon as possible. So yes, we struck a deal with a label to do a soundtrack.
Wow. Well, congratulations, dude. I mean, great job. And thank you for preserving this episode in our history.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black critics, have a great day. Thank you for watching AAFCA Roundtables.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Later. All right.